Okay, well, we can actually start because when they join us, they will pick up where we are, and they will do pick up and whenever or join us whenever they want to. First of all, I would like to ask you questions as to what you expect to learn from this. What is your expectations basically from this workshop? What would you like to be learning from this workshop? What are the things, the areas, or the concerns that you have, and you'd like me to actually shed light on? So I can write them down first. You're welcome to open your mics for a start before I start presenting. So what would you like to learn? All right, if you don't want to start, I will straight away move to the actual presentation. So basically what happens is that when you are doing research, first of all, good morning. My name is Dr. Ahmad Khuddro. I have been doing research since 1992 when I published my first article at that time in Egypt. And then following that, I published some in Turjuman in Morocco. Also, I presented in Geneva, in Italy, in Australia, and in many other, in Jordan, I've attended some as well. And most of these research gatherings are very, very important to enrich your research. So attending conferences is very, very important for you, whether you're doing master's program or a PhD program. Now, of course, the first thing that comes to mind to the researcher is what is the title of my topic and what is the working title of my topic, and how would I know what my title of is going to be. This is something that I will touch upon in a minute. Also, you need to know really when you're working on your project, you need to know the objective of your project, i.e. the aim of your research and what you want to achieve really in this research. Also, you need to know which area I'm going to specialize in or I'm going to focus upon. And this is something that's really of concern to the actual researcher who is starting anew. Again, also the choice of material that you choose and how you implement this material in your research is also important, whether it's actually to do with translation or any other field. You need to know what material you need to use. Another element is to know which theory in your field you need to choose from, and that is also something that you need to focus upon. And finally, which approach I should be doing in my research, whether it's going to be I'm going to be observing, explaining, analyzing, reflecting upon, assessing, or evaluating. Which one of these? So these really are some of the questions or some of the points that are usually goes in the mind of the researcher, but you need as a researcher, you need to decide on these things. You need to know what my topic, what my title is, what my objective is, what's the area, what's the material I should use, which theory I should go for, and also my approach, the way I will deal with the research. What is my approach? I need to decide whether it's going to be observing, explaining, analyzing, reflecting upon, or assessing or evaluating. On top of that, there will be some other questions that you will be wondering what to do about, which is how can I make my research most recent, and where is the one that is the most up-to-date one? How can I find it? Because that helps me in selecting my topic. When you are selecting your topic, you need to know the reasons for when you find an article you're reading. You need to know, why am I reading this article? What are the reasons behind this article that I am actually trying to read and understand? And what am I searching for in this article, in this book that I'm reading? Also, what is the further information about key scholars in my field? Who are the names? I need to drop some names, important names in my research. If I don't mention key scholars in my research, people will think, oh, your research is faulty. Why? Because you didn't mention this scholar and that scholar, because these are major scholars, which they need to be mentioned in your research. You cannot actually avoid them when you are working on your topic or selecting your topic. There is also the element of knowing that your references, the list of references that I have to do, and the bibliography that I have to do. And there is a difference between what is called bibliography and what is called references. And this you need to know about. If your list is a bibliography list at the end of your research, or is it going to be called references? How do I know which topic in my area I should go for? And how can I identify it? This is another element which is of concern to the student. They need to know what topic to choose from in their research, in their interest. Also, they need to know how could they find a certain concepts they are looking for. And you'd like to discuss and see what procedure you need to follow. This is yet another element which requires you to be aware of and you need to focus upon. What is primary research compared to secondary research, which you will hear about that quite a lot. And some of the examiners will be concerned about both your primary research and your secondary research. Both are of importance. Then you need to know, when you are looking for books and references and journals and magazines, which are the primary sources and which are the secondary sources. This is yet another element which you are, and it actually reflects on the quality of your work. Another point which I am going to mention also is relating to how to organize and discuss your examples or samples when you want to discuss them. How do I discuss them? And how do I organize them? And these, of course, would they go under what category I should be selecting my examples? Also, this is just as important. So all of these elements are together makes my research of a quality, of high quality. In order to make it of high quality, I have to make it most recent. I have to know how to actually make use of an article that I read, which is number 2. I need to mention the key scholars, and I need to know what further information is required. If I need to have that further information about key scholars, I need to know about that. I need to decide which ones I should be using, references or bibliography. And also I need to know what topic to use, which concepts I should find, and primary and secondary research and primary and secondary sources, because they reflect on the quality of my work. If I use secondary sources and not primary ones, that will be really very important. The organization of my the whole research is very, very important as well. How do I organize it, and how do I organize the samples that are going in there? This is yet another element which we'll do. Now, all of these are elements or concerns that actually most of the students, when they are doing research, they will be worrying about or concerned about. My workshop today, which includes you actually participating a little bit in the workshop, because it's called workshop and not a lecture, I will be asking you about some things in your research, or something relating to what I am talking about here. Now, the outline of my talk today is going to be about how to narrow your topic. This is the first point I will be talking about. Second point, I'll talk about basics on writing an essay. How do you write an essay or a research paper? And also, how do you find your research gap? Also, I'll talk a little bit about methodology, but very briefly, all of these are going to be very brief. What is my approach to research? I have to know also that. What is considered to be primary and secondary research? Primary and secondary sources, literature review in brief, and conclusion in brief. And then organizing and selecting examples, the introduction of my research, what is the structure of the introduction or the abstract of my research, which I need to actually be preparing. Finally, the research plan, and finally, topics in translation studies in particular. These are the elements that you will discuss or I will talk about today in my workshop. Is there any question that you need to ask before I start?
No, thank you.
All right.
No, thank you, Professor. Good morning, by the way.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Okay, now what I have going to first talk about is narrowing the topic. Now, of course, narrowing the topic is extremely important. Why is it important? Because when I am going to search for something in the database, in any database, if my topic is quite general, I will find myself, and when I search, I find like 10,000 articles to read, which is impossible for me to read as a researcher. So I start to panic. I don't want to panic. I need to actually, that means I have to be more specific, not general, more specific in my topic. The more specific my topic is, the more likely that I will find enough articles or small number of articles that I can cover. If the articles that I cover are quite a lot, then I have to select them. There is a kind of criteria for selecting the articles that I read as well. Now, in narrowing the topic, of course, for example, if I am coming to you and say, look, because I actually given an example here about smoking, and my apologies for that, but it's just to give you an idea of how you will narrow down your topic. If I go for the word smoking, let's say a topic that I have in mind is smoking. And I go and search in a database, not Google, of course, not Wikipedia, of course, because these are very rubbish search engines, because they might have the rubbish in and rubbish out. In other words, you search for something that is unreliable in Wikipedia or in Google, and you will come up with a rubbish kind of result. So you need to search in an academic journal or an academic databases. Academic databases are available in the digital library, in our library, in Effat University library. So it's very important that where I search, I don't search in any place. I need to search in a specific, very high quality databases. If I search in high quality databases, I am more likely to get good quality work, good quality results. If I don't search in these ones, then it's less likely that I will get a good research paper that is highly reputable, and I can publish it later on, because all the famous scholars mentioned in these articles that I'm reading are already famous and key scholars. So I choose, for example, smoking is just a topic that I have just thought of in general, which includes all the disciplines in a way in this workshop. Smoking, if I search for it, I will maybe get 1 million, 2 million, 3 million as a results. In other words, 3 million or 2 million or whatever million of articles, books, journals, magazines, newspapers, quotations, and so on. That is quite disturbing for me as a researcher. I'll get frustrated. I would just go to my supervisor and say, "Look, I don't know what to do. I have seen so many of them. Could you please guide me?" Before you go to your supervisor, you need to actually be more specific. You can say, for example, I'm going to do a topic on smoking in Saudi Arabia. That you have limited a little bit your smoking, your search. The search engine will not actually find you millions now. It might find you in hundreds of thousands of articles. But if you go more specific and say smoking in Saudi Arabia, and in particular in Jeddah, then it's more likely that you'll find much less number of articles that are written about smoking in Saudi Arabia and in particular in Jeddah. However, if I go even further and say I'm going to search for smoking in Saudi Arabia and Jeddah by females only, that will be more specific. And if I specify the age group, I am even further specifying and limiting my scope of research, and that means that I will be finding less articles, and therefore I'll be able to contain the number of articles that I read and the number of publications that I need in my research. Again, if you say the people who are smoking, who are educated and married and have no children, this has made my topic really interesting. When I say I'm going to discuss, the topic of smoking about married people in Jeddah who are educated, they have no children, and they are between the age of 20 and 30, they are females, then my topic is quite specific now. Now I can think of a title that I can come up with that makes everybody interested in reading. That's the same if you are publishing it in a newspaper. If you write a newspaper, your findings that you have found out that those female girls or women who are married and educated and have no children, are less likely, for example, to have illnesses by, let's say, 10%. If you have that as a headline in the newspaper, everybody will read it. But if you say, I'm going to write an article about smoking in general, no one will read it because they know, well, it's general and everybody has actually done it hundreds of times, many times, millions of times. Being more topic specific, also narrowing it down, you can narrow it down in terms of dates. And I don't mean dates as in, having romantic dates. I'm talking about dates as in years. For example, I want to start from 2015 up to 2020 and search only for articles that are from 2015 to 2020 only. That is limiting also my narrowing my topic. Also, if I want to actually say, I want to actually read only the articles that are published in English only, or in English and French, or in English and French and German, or in English and French and Arabic, or in Arabic and English. So you are putting criteria is plural and criterion is singular, putting criteria that will help me in limiting or delimiting, if you like, the borders of my research. Therefore, I will know how to actually select my topic comfortably and make it very interesting and very important for everybody. So what I do is I start when I'm searching in the databases, I start from 2020 backwards. I put 2020, I don't find any articles, then I go back to 2019, 18, 17, 16, 15, and you go backwards. Why do I go backwards? This is another element. Anybody knows why? Anybody can tell me why?
To compare it, Doctor?
To compare it to what?
With the previous information that they reached before?
Yes, exactly. Actually, you have hit the nail on the head. You have just said previous. So if I find an article or a journal, or an article in a journal published in 2019, that means this journal or this article that I'm reading has covered from 2019 backwards. So previous research in that area already covered by this article that I'm reading, which is in 2019. And therefore, I don't have to read as much before 2019 in a way, because this article, which is in 2019, has covered as quite a lot of area or scope before me. Also, another element which is important is this article, which is in 2019. I can go back to, I can start from it as a starting point. It's a very important starting point. I look at all the scholars in that article. These scholars must be very key scholars in the area, especially if the article I search for is in an academic database, like ProQuest or EBSCOhost. And therefore, it's likely that I find all the key scholars, the important scholars in my field, because I need to drop these names. I need to write them down to show my examiners that I know all the scholars in my field. That is very, very important. So in actual fact, this journal, this article that I found in 2019 has not only told me what's done before, but also has given me an idea about what are the scholars that have actually been discussing various issues in my area. So I can take these names. These are jewels for me now. These are gates opening a lot of information for me, because each scholar now, I know that this scholar is in my area and I can go and read about that scholar. And also you look at the date of that scholar. When is that paper by that scholar published? Because always when there are scholars mentioned in that article, they will mention the dates. For example, they say John Smith, 2013. Now I need to know, what did this John Smith say in 2013? So I go to the references at the end of that article and find lots of references. I select from these references the ones that I am interested in. I look at the titles. I find them interesting to me, to my research, to what I have in mind, and then I go and read them. So in other words, I opened through this gate, which is the journal that I found in 2019, I've opened the gate for other gates, for other scholars, for other articles. So I am branching out from one article. This one article has actually guided me, not only given me what is the latest, which is extremely, extremely, extremely important. Most of the examiners will look at your latest research, the latest. They would say these dates of these scholars that you mentioned in your references, there is none mentioned in 2019, for example. They always say to the latest. They want to see what you have been updated to the latest? It's very similar to when you buy an iPhone. You want to buy the latest, not iPhone, my iPhone, which is iPhone 4. You need iPhone 11 or 12 or even 15 if there is one in your research. You need to do the latest, the most recent. So in actual fact, that journal that I found in 2019, okay, has opened gates to other scholars, other journal articles that are mentioned in the references at the very end of the article. And I found that some of the titles in these references are of interest to me. So then I branch out and becomes like a tree. That particular tree starts from this article and moves up through these various scholars that I found in that particular article. Now, there are other elements which are basics in writing an essay. This is yet something more specific about how to write an introduction. What do you write in an introduction to your work? Because you're starting to start your research. According to one of the books called Great Writing in Writing an Essay, and of course research in a research paper, you are more likely to be doing similar kind of, you follow up the same kind of system, if you like. You need to have to start your first paragraph with something that grabs the attention of your research, of your readers. That is of interest to your readers. You want to grab their attention. You need to mention the topic and the subject of your essay or your research paper. And this is according to the book called Great Writing. And I have a reference of it at the end of my paper here, or at the end of my presentation, which you are more, welcome to actually read and have a look at. Now, of course, the objective in the introduction is not only to grab attention of your examiners or your supervisor to your topic. You mention your topic. You mention a background about your topic. Where do you get that background? You get it from these journals that you read. And also you need to mention what's called a thesis statement in your research, i.e. your position, your idea. What do you want to prove? What do you want to actually, what is your main point here from your research? What is it? You must have some sort of a position or an idea in mind that you want to prove in your research. And that is very important. If there is no thesis statement or an idea in your mind that you want to actually take a position, then your research is not going anywhere. You must have a target, an objective. And that is important. In the hook, what's called hook, which is the beginning of that, you can have so many types of hooks as a first sentence to grab attention. And you can just start with a general shocking statement or a definition or a quotation from a person, well-known person. Or you can start with a question. Or you can start with an event or a scene that happened. You can start with a humorous statement. You can start with a dilemma, a problem. Or you can start by comparing or writing a metaphor or a simile as a start for your work. But thesis statement needs to be more specific, gives you your own ideas, as in this case here, which is a statement written in that book, which I am quoting here. He says, in particular, societies, he's talking about voting. He says, societies should not vote with computers or other electronic media because elections are too important to trust cyberspace. Now, once you put that statement of yours in as a thesis of your own, as a point, as a position, as an idea, now what is expected here is to give reasons. Why do you think that cyberspace is no good to use it for voting and computers is no good? You have to go and vote in person. So you have to give reasons in your research. Of course, writing a good essay means that you have to work, or research paper, you need to look at the topic, the purpose of the topic, who is my audience as well? Who are my audience? Your audience are your examiners. So you have to use terminology. You have to use specific terminology that is specialized in your area. It's like having an engineer. When you ask them about something, they use all their terminology in that area, which examiners and your supervisor will know what these terminologies are. So you need to use them to show off that you know all these different terms, specialized terms. That is partly of your work, partly to do with the way you show that you understand your area. And you can, of course, you can use different types of research in terms of, or essays. According to this book again, process, you can use comparison, cause and effect, or argument. Most of the time, it's argument, but you can always use your cause and effect in that one here. Now we finished, really, I'm just giving you an idea of the introduction that is of an essay. Now, many many, this is the second point that I've finished. I finished narrowing the topic, and I've talked basics on writing and an essay. And now I'm going to talk about research gap. How do you find your research gap? Let me just ask you, you are attending here. Let me ask you, I don't know who's here, but I would like to see how would I show know who's with me. Who's I am not familiar with the Zoom as much, so I need to see if anybody would like to say to me, how do you find research gap? Anybody?
If I may say, Doctor?
Sure. Go ahead.
The thing that I did is that I started reading other people's research, and I looked for something that they did not speak about, and then I start researching this area. So for my example was the play, the Egyptian play. What was its name? I'm sorry, I just woke up. But I took a play itself, and then I researched about it and see if the translator uses domestication and foreignization, for example.
Okay. Now, what you're saying, this is a slightly, okay, that is a good start. Anybody else? Anybody else knows in their area what kind of research, how do you find research gap? Anybody?
If I may, each research paper has in the conclusion future research suggestions.
Yes, excellent, excellent. Yes, that is the main idea. So in actual fact, research gap is found in the research paper that you find in your search in the database. So when you go to an academic database and search for your topic and find the paper that is published in 2018 or 19, you will find in this particular paper, let me just, you will find some indication as to what is required for further research. Very important word, further research. Here is a paper, here is a concluding part of a paper that I read. And in that, let's say you have come across this paragraph in the concluding part. Where is the gap? Anybody can see if there is a gap here or what? Where is the gap? Because it's telling us there is a gap here. Where is it? It's just sort of, you are reading a paper on a journal, and you came across this concluding part. Where is the gap? Where can you feel there is a gap as such?
I think regarding the basic parameters, we're discussing Bible translation. The gap remain much the same.
Where does it say that? Where does it say that in the paper?
In the second line.
I need in the second line, what does it say? Much the same. So the parameters, yes, okay. So the basics are remaining much the same. So there's no gap here. Where is the gap, if there is a gap?
I think it's faithfulness in relation to new forms of the Bible.
Yes, it's the last line. It says here, faithfulness remains a complex and intriguing issue in relation to new. So you see these complex and intriguing issue, it says remains. When it says remains a complex and intriguing issue in the new, in relation to the new. Now here is the gap. That is considered to be a gap. which you can actually investigate further. Another example is this one here. Now here, let me just show you how you will see how this concluding part starts to highlight to you where you should go for. When it says new research in the second part, I'm just going to make it like going here. Look at this. I'm just going to highlight new research methods. Okay. The development of new research has the potential for new insights. See, this is they are telling you now where the gaps are. Here again, looking to the future, it's a matter of speculation still. So the word remains, as in the previous example, and in this example, still a matter of speculation, and greater emphasis on empirical research is required. There, it's telling you what is required. It's telling you what is required. Also here, it's telling you research into reader response may lead to a widespread practice. Again, another gap. So these three different areas of gaps in this particular article, which is from another article that I've actually found, those specific translation, but I'm just highlighting the parts that are non-translation. And you can see when you are reading an article, an academic article, when you come to the nearer to the concluding part or the conclusion, you will find further research gaps. There are still more observations that needs to be worked on. Still, on empirical research is required. Still, research in reader response may lead to a wider review of practice. Okay, there's another one here. Development of new research methods. We need to develop new research methods because they offer new insights. These are quite also advances. Look, advances in other types of studies may shed light on, again, giving you more gaps and more interesting threads that you can follow in your research, and you can then know in your area that this is where the actual area is, that the gap is. Now here it's also in the methodology. As I said, you need to look for the most up-to-date. How to look for most up-to-date? And where do you search for articles in your area? And this is where you have to go to a good databases and references in the digital library. ProQuest is a good place. EBSCOhost is another. Is Gale also another. Now you search in these databases for your topic and then you decide you need to search it in journals only, and the journals are only the printed ones or the ones that are online, or both. Also, you need to search in books, and you need to search also in volumes, because the edited volumes, they might have book chapters that you might be able to find some particular chapter in a book which is of interest to you, not necessarily the whole book. Even if you look at the book and find the whole book, you don't need to read the whole book. You only read what is the titles. You look at the chapters that are of interest to you and you read them. So this is how you, if you don't read, you cannot narrow down your topic selection. Is not being done properly unless you read and go and search in databases like Gale or ProQuest or EBSCOhost or any other of these ones. There are also, you can search in encyclopedias, and I'm talking not about Wikipedia, I'm talking about Encyclopedia Britannica, or science like the Lancet, for example, in the medical field, or Science Direct in the engineering field, and there are also in the business field. There are many encyclopedias that are of interest to them. You need to look for the journals that are academic, for the books and the volumes and encyclopedias. And these, by the way, you can find them ready-made, if you like, in the actual first journal that you find, or first article you find in 2019. That is the one that you need to look for and go for. In the methodology, of course, you are going to see, you explain all this. You explain how you are going to approach your research, how you want to outline a plan it in order to prove an argument. You need here to read the guide from the that is found in the Graduate Studies Research Handbook. Graduate Studies Handbook is full of information about how to write a thesis in terms of organization and in terms of guidelines to the thesis style and format, which is very important for you. The hypothesis, it is hypothesized. You say it's assumed that blah, 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 blah in your methodology, and that's what you do. And these are important to show us the methodology of your research. Now, in terms of approach to your research, which approach you're going to go for, which is descriptive, analytical, i.e., are you describing the data? You look at the statistics, you explain the statistics, you analyze them, you reflect upon them, and that's it. You are not prescribing, you're not saying what should be done. What is the tips, the recommendations that you are come up with, which is a prescriptive approach. You're not assessing, you're not evaluating. You got 10%, for example, in your statistics. Why is it 10%? You explain why, but then now, if you want to say now how things should be done, then you are assessing, you are evaluating. That's why people or readers or examiners, they look for your recommendations. What should be done? What is the evaluation? How do you evaluate the data that you've collected, and how you assess it and say, what are my tips and recommendations? It's very similar to when you go to the doctors and the doctor does not give you a medication, which is the prescription. If they don't give you a prescription, you will be very upset because you say, they don't know how they assess my situation and they're not giving me solutions. Problem solving. Prescription is problem solving. You're giving solutions to problems. That's your research. If you're following that area. So if you are problem solving an issue, then you are prescribing. But if you're describing it, that's all. You are just putting the examples, you are analyzing them. You're not saying how they should look like. And that is descriptive and analytical. Now, primary and secondary research, this is very, very important to know the difference between them. Primary research and secondary research. Secondary research is what other people have said, what other scholars have said before you. That is what literature review is about. That is called secondary research. Why secondary? Secondary because you are mentioning other people's ideas, not yours. That's what you do in literature review. You write about other scholars. What do they say? That is what secondary research is about. Now, once you finish with the literature review, then you move on to the primary, which is your own research itself, your findings, what you have to say. That's your primary research. But it does not come straight away. You have to say what other people have said before in the secondary research before you do your primary research. In other words, the literature review must have key scholars, concepts, terminologies, previous practices, good and bad, or researchers, theories to support your argument later in your primary research. So you're not copying and editing in literature review and literature material, but you need to agree or disagree a little bit in literature review in order to reach a conclusion at the end so that you can move on to your primary research, which is your own study, which is your own discussion, your own findings, your own implementation, your own conclusion. Here is an example of primary and secondary sources. You can see in the article we've just read earlier that in the highlighted in yellow is the primary writing of the person who wrote that article. But the secondary is what they quoted from Hudson in 1999 and Soukup. So Soukup and Hudson 1999 is the secondary sources that they have relied upon, and or secondary research, and the primary is the one in yellow. Now, the primary information, if you like, is the one in yellow. This is what the person is saying in their conclusion. But they have mentioned, quoted somebody else from another person. Now, what is called, in terms of sources, primary and secondary, and books, journals, newspapers, if I am to quote now from this particular quotation, if I quote the ones in blue and green, then I am quoting what's already quoted. And therefore, this is a lazy way of doing research. I have to go to the original source, which is written in 1999, and read it there, and not quote or cite from an already cited place. So I need to go to the original. If I don't go to the original, my examiners will say, most of your sources are secondary. I'm sorry. That means you are lazy. You didn't go to the originals. You're just saying, as cited. As cited. No, you go to the original. Because maybe the one in green is actually incorrect. So you have to go to the original. So you have to go to your primary source. You don't cite what's already cited. In the literature review, we don't have time. We're running out of time. I'm not going to carry on with the literature review. I have so much to talk about literature review and conclusion, which is recommendations. I don't have time. Now I'm just going to go to the selecting and organizing your examples. You can go for a criteria like interesting, important, essential, necessary, and complex, your examples, and you organize them as least complex, more complex, most complex in your organization. I'm just going to give you a rough idea of what you have to be including here in your research. You have to talk about your rationale, the reasons behind choosing the topic, motivation. You have to talk about the purpose of your study. That helps you a lot in selecting your topic as well. Research questions. What are the tasks that you are undertaking in order to achieve your aim? What are the tasks you want to actually do in your research in order to achieve your aim? The scope and limitation, you want to limit it from 2010 up till now, and you are talking about 2 particular issues and not many, so you have to limit your study a little bit, and all those in English. You can talk about your own hypothesis that you want to investigate, and the value of the study, significance, who's going to benefit from it, methodology, and the outline. I'm just going to stop here because I'm already 5 minutes. I want to leave you with some questions for you to ask me, because otherwise it's a one-way street, and I don't want it to be one way. I want to have a interaction going on. So I'm going to stop here, and I want to see your questions. If you have questions to ask me, that we can together discuss. Any questions, please? I don't know how to Now, okay. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So, to what percent should I be familiar with the topic and the terminology used in the topic I'm searching for?
Sorry, to what are you familiar with the topic and the what? Sorry.
To what percent should I be familiar with the terms and basically the topic that I'm choosing?
Excellent. Okay. Percentage. Now, you have in the literature review, you have to show off that I know all these terminology in my area. It's almost like the tools that you use when you are doing your work, your research. The terms that you're using are showing your examiners, your scholars, your supervisor that you are actually aware of all these terminologies and what they mean. The main scholars, the key scholars, you have to mention because you need to show that you understand their concepts. So what is important is you need to cover as much as possible of in your area. If you are limiting or narrowing down your topic, then it's more likely that you will not have to mention everything in your area, all the terminology and all the scholars in your area. Only the ones that are specialized in your specific topic. That's the only ones you need to mention. In terms of percentage, in the literature review, you need to, I would say in the literature review, you need to have like 90%, 90%. All of the terminology, all of the scholars in your topic. But when you narrow down the topic, I'm talking about narrowing it down first. Yeah, so that you can actually contain your topic quite well. So you need to do a lot of terminology in there, yes. So long as it covers your topic, high percentage. Yeah, very high.
Thank you.
Sir?
Yes.
Dr. Ahmad?
Yes.
Sir, related to the calculation that I need to do it inside the research.
Yes.
So how could I appear my work? Like, for example, in finance, we have a lot of calculations that we need to work, like a standard deviation or the regression or whatever the calculation that it's lead us to the result or to going or appearing the number.
Yes.
So how do I appear this one or include this one inside my paper?
Excellent question. Now, this does not apply only to you, by the way, the statistics, because in engineering, in translation, in quantitative research, you have to use lots of statistics. When you need to see what other people have actually had done before you in terms of statistics, based on what they said first, maybe their statistics are different from yours. So first you need to mention their statistics before yours to show the difference between yours and theirs. Now, another point which I want to make is that, let's say in your statistics, it says 10% something, 15% something, 20% something. Okay, there's 20%, 15%, and 10%. You cannot just state that only. You have to say why. Very important. Now, here I have to mention something which I didn't mention earlier about the 6 questions that you have to raise in your research. First question, second and third and fourth are descriptive. You're describing what the statistics about. What, where, when, and who has done this statistics. So all these 4 statistics, 4 questions, what, where, when, and who, are descriptive. You're describing what you have found in the report. 20%, 5%, 10%, whatever. Now you need to move on from that part, from the descriptive part, to the analytical part, which is the reasoning, the reasons behind these numbers. Why is it 10%? That is number 5, the question number why. Why? The reasons for becoming 10%, the reason for being 5%, the reason for being 17%. So you need to explain the reasons behind these statistics. So you don't only just give these statistics as they are, you have to analyze them. You have to say the reasons behind them. Why are they like this? Because, blah, 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 because, you have to explain. And then this is the second stage of research. The first stage is descriptive. You're saying what, where, when, and who. You're just saying what's in the report. Second part is you're saying why these statistics are like that. And the third stage, which is the extremely important stage, which many students don't even venture to do, and I would advise them to do, and everybody loves that kind of research, is to say how this can be sorted, can be solved, can be rectified, can be verified. So the question how means give me recommendations, give me problem solving. How can you solve this kind of statistics? What are the solutions? Not only just give me the statistics, say, if you do this and this and this, then your statistics will become like this. That is the solution. And that is when everybody who finds these solutions say, look, your research is excellent. Why? Because you're giving recommendations, because I'm looking at your conclusion and find all these problem-solving elements done. If there are no problem solving, if there is no how to solve the problem, not only identifying the problem, which is the descriptive, not only saying why this is a problem, which is analytical, but also how to solve the problem, which is assessment and evaluation. And this is where all research is actually focusing upon, to see what are the recommendations, what are the tips. It's like going to, if you go in engineering, let's say, or in architecture. For example, there's a crack on the wall. Okay, you invite an engineer and say, look, there is a crack on the wall. They say, they'll ask you questions, what, where, when, and who. Who did this? Who built this wall? When was it? When did the crack appear? When? And where is it? From where to where? Okay. And what was wrong with it? What? So all 4 questions, the descriptive, you take them, the engineer takes them from the person who owns the property, who owns that wall. But when the engineer comes in and says, look, I'll tell the reasons behind this problem, you say, oh yeah, I want to listen, because it's analytical. Because now you reach the point of, in your research, to be analytical, to say why, the reasons. He says, why is it like this? Because it's very hot in this country. Because the land, the sand in this area or the foundation is blah, blah. So it's giving you the reasons, the whys. There you like this engineer because he's telling you the reasons. Now, he told you the reasons and he says, look, I'm sorry, I can't tell you how to solve the problem. You say, oh, you're terrible. Why? Because he didn't reach the how to solve the problem, which is the evaluative and the assessment area. And that is the hardest part. If he says to you how to solve this crack, tells you, look, you have to knock down this area and fix it like this. There is the consultation. There is the person who is a consultant now. He's telling you how to solve the problem. Problem solving. So that's the area where it is of interest to everybody who is interested in research, to see the problem solving, to see the concluding part, to see the solution, to see the solutions to the problems that you are facing. The same applies to when you are going to a doctor. It's the same thing. If the doctor does not give you medication, says there's nothing wrong with you, after you explained what happened to you, when it's happening, and where is the pain, and so on, and he says to you, because the pain is there because he tells you reasons, the doctor, but he doesn't give you any medication. You say, this doctor is terrible because he's not giving any solutions. And that's what you need to be looking at when you're doing research, to give recommendations, tips in your research of the statistics that you have. Is that clear? Does that make sense? Abdurrahman?
Yes, Professor. Thank you very much for your answer.
Is that clear? Is that clear
Yes.
for your statistics? You have to divide them into 3 different areas, 3 different stages.
This is really insightful seminar, Doctor. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Any other questions?
Would it be possible to see the last point of the outline, which is the research topic specific to translation studies?
Yes, sure. Okay, we can look for that in particular in the outline for the outline. Okay, you want to see, well, the outline for, I'm talking about here the outline as in the chapters, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4 in the presentation, if that's what you are talking about. If the presentation.
No, I was just referring to slide 26.
26, yes,
which
sure.
mentions the topics, yes.
Yes, the topics. Okay, fair enough. Okay, have you got it? Can you see it? Because I don't know whether you can see it. Oh, you can see it. Okay.
Yes.
All right. The topics can be really, you know, can be varied quite widely. I would say that your best bet is really to go for an encyclopedia, as I said before, let me just go to the slide before it, which is this one. If you go to Mona Baker, Encyclopedia of Translation Studies, then you'll have many topics, many articles in different areas, whether it's culture and translation, music and translation, media and translation. In media, you can journalism, you have in audiovisual, you have dubbing and subtitling, you have screen play, you have audio description, you have SDH, you have so many topics, subtopics under that. Mona Baker will have loads of articles. Look at any of the articles you want to go for, and you can do that. Now, if you want to go for slide number 12, in terms of that, you can go for example, if you're going for pragmatics and for relevance theory, for example, you can go for Sperber and Wilson. Sperber and Wilson, he talked about that, and Gutt is 2000. He talks about translation and relevance. You can go for equivalence, if you like. If you want to go for the equivalence, functional equivalence and that, you can go for translation shifts. You can go for strategies and procedures. You can go for ideology and translation. In ideology in translation, you can go for, a good example for ideology and translation is, let's say, for example, if it's an Israeli TV station, they will say 3 terrorists attacked a place. Of course, if you translate 3 terrorists, according to the Israeli TV, is terrorists, and this is the ideology there. And you have another ideology, which is another hidden agenda, political agenda, and this is politics and translation, where they say, 3 martyrs who have died. So it depends on, or مقاومة, 3 رجال من المقاومة, resistance movement. So you are actually looking at ideology and translation in that as well. So that is also a topic. Power in translation is also important as a topic. As I said, ideology and translation, political, whether it's religious texts, if you're translating religious texts. If you're looking at information and informational technology and translation. Then you're looking at localization and globalization, machine translation and CAT translation. And these are also important. If you're looking at culture and translation, you need to read Suzanne Basnet and André Lefebvre, and they talk about culture. And in culture, you talk about the iceberg image, where the surface language is at the top, and then under it is the beliefs and the habits and the customs and the knowledge and the religion, which goes under it, which is called iceberg image. There's what's called the onion image, where there are layers of culture that you peel off, and that is Catan and Hall, well-known scholars in the area of culture and translation. When it comes to culture, there's also what's called culture turn. Venuti is a good one. You can go for audiovisual, Gonzalez, Diacentis, Gambier, myself, Khuddro as well. There are so many topics, but within these very general topics, there will be under them very more specific topics that you need to go for, which you need to read about. So it's not only the general, these are quite general, you need to select even. You can go also for what's called translation and quality assessment of translation. How do you assess the quality of translation? There's also translation, teaching translation is another topic which you can go into. But the quality assessment and translation, there is also Julian House, which she speaks about the quality of translation. How do you assess a translation? What kind of criteria do you put in for assessing a translation to make that translation a successful translation or not a successful translation? This is another one. You can also go for a topic called text type and translation, depending on the text type, which type of text you are going for. You can go for that as well. You can go for functional equivalence. You can go for contextualization in translation, which is a very quite recent topic dealt with by House in 2016, for example. If you read this is, as I said, the references that I've just mentioned, they will be really useful for you as being like Mona Baker or Monday and Hatem Advanced Resource Book. These are good books that can actually help you to look at various topics in them, read them. They might eliminate their audiovisual. There are lots of books in audiovisual, and I have provided you with some of them for research as well. You can go and read for them. There are so many areas in there which you can go for. I have read something about fan subbing and professional subtitling article recently. There's parallelism in translation, metaphors in translation. There are so many devices, poetic devices in translation, literary translation. There are hundreds and hundreds of topics you can go for. But if you read a recent article in the area you're interested in, that will be, if it's culture, read the latest about culture. If it's in ideology and translation, read the latest on ideology and translation. If it's pragmatics and translation, read the latest journal in there. That will help you a lot in finding the gaps, research gaps, which helps you also in the writing of the title of your topic or in the topic, and you can read about the scholars. Read about the scholars, what they have written, what article they've written that are of interest to you. Read them. They will open up your eyes to you new avenues and new floodgates, really, full of interesting issues and interesting topics to talk about. And it's very, very, very extremely open. The topics are so many, and it's so interesting. All of them are very, very interesting to go through and discuss and talk about. And of course, there's no limit on how many topics you can go for. once you read any topic, you will find loads of things that you can read, and you can talk about ideology and translation. You can talk about repetition in translation, its importance, parallelism, culture, manipulation in translation. You can talk about ethics in translation, quality assessment of translation, audiovisual interpreting, consecutive interpreting, community interpreting, simultaneous interpreting, consecutive, and so on. There's so many different topics in there about the ethics of interpreting, which you can go through and address. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of topics, Sally, for you to go through, foreignizing and domestication, and so on. Quite a lot of topics to actually cover, which cannot be covered in one workshop like this one here. Does that give you some sort of ideas? Does open up your ideas, some ideas, gives you a lot of ideas. I mean, the more you read, the more clearer the vision will be. You need to read more and more and more. The more you read, the better the vision is. So that's really what is your first priority. Read and read and read. The more you read, the better your research becomes. And read quality work, quality articles. It will be, I mean, any topic is quite interesting and exciting, so long as you highlight what the gap was before and you are trying to investigate it. But you need to have an aim. What is your aim? What are you trying to reach and prove? What is your view? For example, some people say, if I am talking about dubbing, some people say dubbing is rubbish, for example, or dubbing is not reliable. Okay, somebody said, let's say something like this in one of the articles. You take that quotation and say, look, they said this, and I want to prove otherwise. And then you start reading about dubbing, but you focus only on dubbing and you carry on. Now, if you want material, then you get any video in dubbing that you like, and you just pick it up. It doesn't, I mean, the material itself is just only to implement your own view. That's all. So the material itself, whether it's a video, a film, a documentary, a TV series, it doesn't matter, whichever one you want. So you pick up the one you like and then just go in and implement your idea. It's to implement your idea. For example, if I'm going to do in theater, about theater and that, I need to decide which play I need to go for. So you just go and find a play in particular, and then you decide on that. Now, you can either then, of course, you can either translate the play or find already translations, and you compare translation that already exists. So an already existed translation, and then you can analyze it and talk about it. Some people get to put 3-4 different variations of the same material being translated by different people. And that is also possible. So you don't have to translate yourself. You can get other person. If it's a film that's never been translated before, you can translate it and then discuss it according to your view of what, if you are talking about it in terms of dubbing it, or if you are subtitling it, or if you are SDH, or if you are talking about screenplay, or if you're talking about audio description. You know, it depends what you want to be doing in that particular. That's what I mean by narrowing down the topic. Okay, that's what it means to narrow down the topic. So the material itself that you implement on or apply to is in translation is up to you to decide, but only you need to know what you are trying to prove in your research. Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, okay, you're welcome. I mean, if you want in particular, because I mean, I don't know how many of you are now in translation with me today, because I have no idea who is attending and who is not. If you are not, if you are in translation, you can share with me if you want. You're briefly just tell me what your topic is about, and I can guide you further. I can't. I mean, now because there are everybody who is not translation is joining us. But if you want in specifically towards translation, tell me what your topic, and I will tell you some scholars now as to which one you need to read, and in order to develop your topic further and know how to move forward, because it depends what it is. If it's in culture, read Catan and Ho and Venuti and Suzanne Massenet and Lefebvre. If it is in political translation, read Christina, what's her name? Schaffner, Christina Schaffner in political translation. If it's in screen translation, read, it depends what you mean by screen translation. There's what's called politeness in translation, in screen translation, politeness, censorship. There is swear words, taboo language with relating to religion, politics, or sex. So that is one area in, and also screen translation, which one? Subtitling, dubbing, which one? So you decide on specifically in the audiovisual. If you are talking about ideology and translation, there is pragmatics. You have Basel Hatem. Basel Hatem is he's very keen on pragmatics. If you are dealing in pragmatics, you read something about speech acts. You read about Cyril and Paul Grice, maxims, the cooperation maxims, the four maxims and cooperation. You need to read about implicature and explicature in pragmatics. You need to read about that. If you are going pragmatics and audiovisual, you can choose very good films. Casino Royale is a good one for pragmatics. If you are going to go into, I mean, in scientific translation, scientific and non-scientific, technical and non-technical translation, then you're looking at terminology. You need to look at also scholars in that area as well. Legal, there is quite a lot of legal writers. Servich is one, 2000. There is also Hanem El-Farhati in legal. There is Mahmoud Sabra in legal. He does legal. There's also Dr. Rafat Al-Wazna in legal. They all have written something in legal. Very interesting topic. You can talk about legal and contracts. You can talk about legal from English into Arabic or Arabic to English. Also, you need to decide from English to Arabic or Arabic into English. This is another element. What else? This is in legal. In business, I am specialized in business translation. You can talk about accounting, banking, terminology. Also, in literary, you can talk about quite a lot of in metaphors, cultural items, similes, devices, literary devices used in a specific literary work that you can deal with or discuss. You can use non-fiction writing, if you like. I remember I supervised somebody who was doing something in HR and translation, which is business translation. She did nominal sentences or phrases, and she discussed them. So it's quite a lot of really quite a varied area, and so many. Advertising, there's marketing. I have some student who did in marketing, advertising. She did how to advertise in the social media and translation. There's also tourism and translation. It's quite interesting. Also, look into that. Quite interesting in advertising. I think if a good start, go to Mona Baker's Encyclopedia of Translation Studies and see there are many articles there. Choose one of them, read them, see where the gaps are, see if they are of interest to you, and go for it. Okay, any other questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Any other? Okay, if there are no questions, I'm just gonna bid you have a nice rest of the weekend, restful weekend, and I wish you the very best in your research. And if you have any questions specific to your own topic, please, you could drop me a line. You've seen my email, and I'd be more than happy to discuss it in person, separately, one by one, if you are interested in that as well. Okay? All right. Have a nice day, everyone. If there are no questions, I will leave you to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, you're welcome. See you later.